GTV, if we can go ahead and start, please. Good evening, everyone. This is the Capital Improvements Program Committee meeting on June 29th. Tonight we will be hearing from the school district, but we do have two administrative issues first. And before that, let's go around the room and just do a roll call. Let's start with you, Joanne.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Brett Parker, Community Member at Large.
Samantha Kearns, Budget Committee.
Gayla Brett, Community Member at Large and Recording Secretary.
Kimberly Peace.
Kelly Boyer, Select Board Rep.
Ellen Krakowitz, School Board.
Danielle Boswara, Finance Director, Assistant Town Administrator.
Thank you. I said we'll approve the minutes. We want to approve the minutes now, or let's let Scott do his thing, and then we'll approve the minutes at the end. But remind me to do that, or I'll forget. So, okay. So tonight we are hearing from the Goffstown School District for their CIP submission. As everyone, Brad, it's under the school tab, not under the big town tab. So you probably know that.
Hi, Jim.
And here comes Jimmy. We stalled long enough. All right, Scott, maybe you want to give us a quick overview of,
Sure.
I don't know how you want to attack this. It's up to you.
Yeah.
You have the floor.
I think I know everybody here. Scott Gross. I'm the Business Administrator for SAU 19, Goffstown School District, and behind me is Steve Bourget. He's our IT Director. You'll see that we have quite a few IT items on the CIP, and Randy Loring is here. He is our Facilities Director. So if there are questions related to any of those, they are the brain trust who will know the answers. So just to give you like an overview, when you look at the school CIP, you're going to see a very large bottom line number. And the overview is that we have been finding it increasingly difficult to do some of these projects in terms of using our capital reserve fund. We have probably about $10 million worth of CIP items over the next 10 years for replacing air handlers, some of its IT equipment, et cetera. And the notion of trying to chip away at it is really not something that we think we can do. And so we're looking at two different approaches, and we talked to the school board about that during their retreat a few weeks ago. And that is, we're looking at a municipal type lease for items that we can put into that lease, and typically those are done for boilers. You can do it for HVAC type equipment, things that have a useful life of say 15 years. We met with, Randy and I had a meeting with a company called EMC, and they're even telling us that there are even roofs might be included if you're including insulation and some other energy savings as well. So into a municipal lease. Municipal lease would only require, it doesn't even require, there's an RSA, it doesn't even require a vote of the general public, the citizenry, although that can be done. I have a feeling that the school board will probably put this out on the warrant, but it's not needed, and I don't have the RSA in front of me, but as long as it contains a non-appropriation clause, you can do that. And then the other one is considering a bond as well. And there are certain things that we can't do a lease on, and that would be like roadways. So if things, septic systems. So if you have been to, say, Mountain View is a good example, that road is 30 plus years old. It's starting to fall apart, the parking lots, etc. The leach fields, one of them, Randy, right, is under, 3 of them are underneath the pavement. So you kind of have to do those at the same time. So certain things won't lend themselves to a lease. So we're going to be looking at bonding. And one of the things that I will go over with you is that Randy and I have met with a couple of companies. I've met with a company that will deal with some of the financing, as well as the New Hampshire Bond Bank. They've given me some proposals, and I'll give you what those numbers are. The challenge on the municipal lease side, when you talk about HVAC, is that some of them have what's called performance contracts, meaning that when you replace a current air handler or air conditioning system, because there's greater energy efficiency, even though that you're leasing it over, say, a 10-year period, the cost of financing is reduced by the energy efficiency that you're gaining. So I have numbers, and I'll share those with you later on, in terms of if you're looking to plug in numbers over a 10 or 15-year period, I'll give you those, because I think that will be needed in terms of when you balance out your numbers at the end. But since we just met with the school board a couple of weeks ago, and Randy and I are still meeting with people and getting, those dollar amounts. You're going to see that there's most of this is repeat customer stuff. So whether it be heating controls, bathroom renovations, roof replacements, there's nothing that those have been on here for Randy, what, 3-4 years, right? And then the same thing you're going to see for IT, whether it be like laptop replacements or security camera upgrades, things like that. But I can go through, if you would like, briefly what's in each school. And then if you have any questions, Steve and Randy are here if I can't respond to them. It's up to you as to how you want to proceed. But that's just the overview. The last thing that you'll see in the year 2029, 2030, or the last year of the matrix, is a new school. And that's something where I plugged in a number of $60 million, and that would be for a middle school, knowing that the school board could decide to either build an elementary school or a middle school down the road. They have yet to decide that, but I wanted it to be out there on the CIP because I want folks to understand that our elementary schools are very overcrowded. We have portables at Glen Lake, Bartlett, and Maple Avenue, and this is a necessity. So what was discussed with the school board, essentially, was the notion of either building, there's two scenarios for long-term. Building a new elementary school, a combined elementary school behind, we own the property behind the high school, and it would be a combined elementary school. Bartlett and Maple Avenue would merge. We would not, the jury is still out on whether or not Glen Lake would also be combined, probably not. In that vein, what would more than likely happen would be that Glen Lake, if we wanted to entertain full-day kindergarten, which we can't now because you need more classrooms, and when you have full-day programs, you need gymnasium space, cafeteria space, library, the whole thing. The school board would then have to entertain the notion of perhaps moving students or moving Glen Lake students to Maple Avenue, and then you'd have the space to run a full-day kindergarten program. So that's one scenario. The other scenario would be to build a new middle school, and then you would have the students who attend Bartlett and Maple go to Mountain View. You do your retrofits, because you're going to see in here that some of these involve bathroom renovations and things like that. So that's the long-term 6-year outlook, knowing that it takes time to educate the community on these things, but I believe the school board is right now is of the position that things haven't really changed over the last, portables have not gone away. We're still experiencing elementary school growth. Once that it's going to cycle through the middle school and then the high school, will it remain? We also are a little nervous about Bog Road and Mill Street, and now there's another development on Mast Road, and so all of these are impacts. So that's kind of the overview. Is that you're going to see in here a municipal lease in 24 in the year next. We put on the ballot in March of 24. The following year, we're entertaining the thought of having a bond, and then way out in that 2030 would be potentially building a warrant article to build a new school. So didn't want there to be any surprises there.
Is that, so you said there's one bond coming out, and maybe just as you go, maybe if you just go through it.
There would be
like
two
school by
bonds.
school? Oh, two.
So there's the potential of two bonds. So a bond would be for us, FY 25. It would be on the ballot in March of 25. So that is one scenario. And that would be more of a renovation type bond, district-wide, all schools. And Then in that last year, it would be, whether it be a new elementary or a new middle school. I plugged in numbers for a new middle school, so that's more of a worst-case scenario, the 60 million, but it's probably not, because when we get to that year, it might be, or close to it, for an elementary school. So the cost of building schools is astronomical at this point. You know, I shared with somebody the other day that I went by a new high school in, I think it was Arlington, Massachusetts. I think it was Arlington, and it was a $250 million high school that they're building. 250 million. So, and it only housed, it was 1,400 students. So things are not.
Because we have about 1,200 now, don't we, in our high school?
Our high school is about 1,050 right now, 1,050, and it will increase because we're seeing this bubble, you know, go through. But right now it's about 1,050.
Question. Municipal lead, Scott.
Yeah.
I'd never heard the term before, or I've missed it. What is that really? Is that something new or something that?
No, it's been on the books for a while, and it's both the town and the school district can use it. And basically, you're entering into a multi-year lease purchase. That lease purchase must contain language, it's almost like an escape clause, it's called non-appropriation clause, in order for the governing bodies to use it. And I don't have the RSA on me right now.
That's fine. Now, is this something we've used before, or?
We have used it for IT type purchases.
Okay.
We've done that. I don't know if the town has. I don't remember. I'm not positive. Do you know, Danielle?
Not that I've seen record of.
A lot
I would
of
say 30.
school districts do use these types of financing tools.
Then does that become like an annual?
Yeah. So if you remember a long time ago, we're still paying on it. It was a, what was that, Randy? Honeywell, where they come in, they replace your lighting. And then based upon, they factor in, based upon this new lighting that we put in, you're gonna save X amount of dollars, and, you know, you pay it over a period of time. Those types of leases. Some of them are performance-based, meaning that the pricing that they give you through their financing, there's an expectation that you're gonna have energy savings. Others don't have that because they might not yield energy savings. But those that do these leases the one group that we spoke to earlier in the week was they do like when you can combine energy savings. So an example would be like LED lighting. If you go in and you retrofit all of your lighting with LED, which requires a lot less energy and actually greater opportunity for users to adjust the lighting, to dim it, etc. There's so much energy savings that is in there that it typically has, Randy, what would you say, like a 7 or 8 year buyback in most cases? It depends upon the rebates. Eversource also gives, and the state or federal government gives you rebates if you switch over to some of these different options, like especially with lighting. So HVAC and those projects, same exact thing. If you're replacing a 25-year-old air conditioning unit on top of a building with a brand new one, which is way more energy efficient, you're going to spend a lot less money on energy to power it up and to use it. So they build that into the cost structure, meaning that they basically, and Randy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say for an example that you're spending $200,000 a year on electricity, and that they believe that if you install, say, new lighting or a new HVAC, that now you're only going to need about $170,000 of electricity needed to power up the same equipment to do what your buildings need. And then what they say is that, okay, if you had a $100,000 payment, now you have $25,000 in energy savings, so now it's down to $75,000, and now Eversource is giving you a $20,000 rebate, and that's how they're able to, finance it on pretty agreeable terms. It's very similar to people who, if you've ever done any type of home improvement projects, whether it be HVAC or sometimes windows with their rebates and or financing, they do the same thing.
So for example, we have to pay $250,000 for an air conditioner. but instead we go through a lease, and the lease, does that then become part of the school board's operating budget? So
Yes.
that drops off CIP?
Yeah, well, what'll happen is, it will stay on your CIP, but it's gonna show as an annual expense. So let's say, so what you're seeing, so I'm kind of skipping to the end a little bit, but we put everything, let's just say in 2024, which is, let's say it's $4 million is in 2024, but if we use a municipal lease, it might come to $250,000 payment over X amount of years. Okay?
Right.
So we're not paying $4 million, we're paying, let's just say $500,000 for the next, so many
Okay.
years.
But the idea is it's still gonna be high enough that those numbers are gonna end up on CIP.
Correct.
But it's kind of spreading it out more.
You're spreading it out, it's no different than if you were to, lease purchase a car or other things, yeah. You're financing it basically. The interest rates, they're not horrible, about 4 to 5%, which is not bad in today's climate. Bond rates right now are about 3.75% to 4 through the municipal bond bank for 20 and 25-year terms. So if we go that route, these are all subject to change. So the bottom line is that we just don't. The school board does not believe that we can do these projects without some sort of financing. Unless there is a dramatic change in how much they put into their capital reserve fund. I mean, I shared with Ellen and the school board, you'd have to start putting in minimally $500,000 or $600,000 a year to chip away at this. And we're not there. We've only been putting in $200,000 or $250,000. So honestly, we had, last year when we wanted to go to $300,000 deposit, we had a lengthy discussion with the budget committee about that. They wanted us to go down to 200. We compromised at 250, but the numbers here just speak to the notion that it needs to be double that or triple that if, based upon what the needs are.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? No. Okay. So yeah, Scott, if you just want to walk through each school,
Okay.
kind of.
Sure. So as we start, I just want to make sure that I have this one which is dated 6/1. You have a separate school one? We're using this one? Beautiful. Okay. So at Bartlett Elementary School, heating controls is something that we have not been able to do. This past year, we hired a company. They went through our buildings at both Bartlett and Maple, and they're preparing a request for a proposal, a bid document set that when we're ready for this project, we can put it out to bid, but we haven't been able to do that. So right now, we have pneumatic controls, it's all pneumatic controls, and right now we don't have the ability. Randy, if you want to come up, Randy can kind of explain that, but we don't have the ability to do things remotely on some of these systems, monitor those, so that's...
Just like at the high school, for example, that's direct digitally controlled, where I can go on in my office, pull up the high school, and I can see every room and every
hold on.
school.
Can I interrupt you a second?
Yeah.
Scott, you said your matrix is dated differently than what we have in our books. We have the school 520 in our books.
Yep.
That's correct.
But we've got another one in the end of the packet dated 6/1.
That doesn't have,
That doesn't have the school though.
That's just the town.
The town, that's the town CIP.
You want to go under the school tab,
Well,
Jim.
it says school capital projects on it, page 6 of 9.
Or Joe? No, I thought we discussed this.
I think that's the combined
In the
one, the
school
town and
tab,
school.
there's a separate one for the schools, at the very end of the school tab.
Yeah, dated 5/20.
Yeah, that's the one
And
with
in the big packet at the end, there's one dated 6/1.
That's an
20.
update for the for
no,
the
it's
town.
he's talking about page 6 of 9 on the
It
6-1.
says school capital projects on it.
It's the same one. What we did is we took the school's copy from 520 and added it to the end of the matrix in order to get the combined totals by year.
Oh, okay. That is
I'll
very
use,
confusing.
you can tell me whichever one you want to use.
No, I mean, as long as the numbers are the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did you?
So just so that we're all following on the same document, I can
I
use
know indeed.
the schools only, or the
Last
or the
year.
one where the school is on the back of the town. So I can, however you want to do it.
But they're the same. Is pagination, the lines the same?
Yeah, let's look at the one from 6-1 that's in the town, that's in the end of our
Okay.
packet.
Don't have,
I don't have that. You don't have it?
I have
Oh, because
520.
you replaced the, when you got the 6-14.
It's going to be the same because the projects are going to be identical. If you look at project number, they're the same.
They're the same.
All right, so
So,
since not everyone has that one, let's go look at the one that the schools have.
yeah, and the nice thing is that no matter which version you're on, there's a project number
Okay.
on the far left. So heating controls, you've seen that before. Bathroom renovations at Bartlett, you've seen that's been on there forever. Replacing roofs, roof sections, also been on there. Boiler replacement has been on there. We've added parking lot and driveway overlay of pavement at Bartlett School, and we've put in estimates pretty much to redo all of our parking lots and drives, with the exception of maybe Glen Lake. You'll see what is new is product number 8, mini split for all classrooms. And this is just to provide better temperature control. We also have summer school in some of these buildings, and it's hot as you all get go. So having the ability to have air conditioning in a couple of the schools is important. LED dimming lights throughout the building, and again, that is something that is new, but it's also something that would be under a lease, because it has energy efficiency benefits to it. And then another one is something that would fall under the auspices of Steve, and that would be security camera upgrades and panic alarm upgrades. That is also new. It's about $35,000. A lot of our security cameras are aging, they're analog, and we want to switch them over to digital. One of the things that I want to let you know is that there will probably be another round of public school infrastructure funding. We recently used that funding to do what's called access controls on our doors, which are electronic key strikes at our buildings. And I can't get into a whole lot of details because that type of stuff is not something that I would want to discuss publicly, how security in terms of our buildings, but we will have those in our schools. The security cameras, same thing. As they get older, we just need to replace them with digital. There are usually grants that the state provides. So if we can get a grant, and Steve has gotten a couple $100,000.
Yeah, so we're going to be, the state has another window we expect to open at the end of the year through the Department of Safety to allow schools to do certain things, panic alarms, key fob access, security cameras, window film, those safety type items that they list as qualified that we can put in for. I'm in the process of getting everything ready for when that opens. They're hit or miss on whether we get them.
Yeah.
But some of our security cameras, to put it in context, were put in when the high school was renovated in 2003. So some of them are a little bit on it's a grainy blob that moved and we're not quite sure what it is.
They'll all take really good pictures in case anybody wants to know.
And other ones are nice and clear. I just can't tell you which ones are which.
So, the short story on that is that some of these things are eligible possibly for grants. Whenever we can use a grant, we do that. This way it doesn't have to come out of tax dollars. And security cameras and those other things are certainly there. Maple Avenue Elementary School, very similar to Bartlett, heating controls project, bathroom renovations, and I think for those of you who've ever been to the school, I mean, some of these bathrooms are like 50 years old or more. Roof replacements, you'll see an air handler replacements, boiler replacements. We do have a small amount of asbestos still in the building, and that's something that whenever we do a project in any of our classrooms, and Randy, we just did one this past year, I think, where we did some countertops, right?
Yes, we did.
We had to abate the asbestos before we could
Before
do
we
that.
can actually do it.
Yep.
And that's with licensed certified abaters, you just can't have anybody come in and do it, so you have to, it's a certain people that have that skill set that we have to use.
So we put that on there. Again, it's not a whole lot, and I will say that We have some asbestos flooring that is encapsulated, which is fine. High school is a place where we have probably some more, and you'll see that a little later on, but it's nothing that should be any alarming. I mean, this is in a lot of schools and public buildings have it. Parking lot and driveway reclamation, again, we put in a preliminary place mark of $500,000. We have to get estimates, more estimates on there, but it really needs to be like literally ripped up, reclaimed, the whole, this is not overlay type stuff. And I should say, put out a thank you to, because Randy and I have met with Mike Hillhouse and Adam Jacobs, and so for the benefit of the select board, can't thank the town departments enough. They're phenomenal partners, and we lean on each other, and we call them up, and they hook us up with Continental Paving and other vendors. So we really appreciate all the help they provide us. You'll see that we've been looking to replace our signs. At the high school, there's an EMC message board, and as we're able to do that, we will. It does take time to go out in cold, wintry days. I don't think folks like to go out on those days to change the sign. You can only change it once a week, and the high school one has kind of been a game changer for us in that respect. We've got some chimney repairs. Again, LED dimming lighting in the building. There was a request to add a staff bathroom. And then Steve has laptop cart replacements, which we're going to be putting on a cycle. So that'll be more of a budgetary thing where it'll be in the school budget, as kind of make it more like a program where every year we're replacing one cart type of thing. Okay. And then same thing, security upgrades and panic alarm upgrades. So those are your two, Bartlett and Maple. And I will say that I have tremendous partners in Randy and Steve, and who have put in a lot of effort. I think it was the budget committee that kind of gave us a whipping like 3 years ago or 4, like, hey, you need to do a better job on your CIP, and we took that to heart, and now I think we spent a ton of time on trying to put down on this document the things that we need to do. And I know that it might look scary to people when you look at some of these numbers, but I think it demonstrates that we are looking forward. We're just not being reactive.
Scott, can you answer why is TBD under the LED dimming? Is that because of what you discussed about?
Because at that time, Randy didn't have a price, so we're waiting on a price.
Okay.
Can I ask you a quick question? Under the chimney repairs, I noticed in the description it says replace old chimney because it's failed. I feel like isn't that a big problem?
Well,
if there's no chimney? Like, you just have like a hole in the roof? Like.
No, we're talking, it's at Maple Avenue. There's 2 boilers, and when they had done a renovation of the boiler at one time, they put in a high efficiency boiler, and it has its own exhaust system.
Okay.
So that superseded the existing chimney that was there that had cracks in the flue lining, and the fire department said, obviously you can't run the boiler through that, so they put its own there, but there's no backup to that boiler. If that boiler goes down, there's no redundant, there's not a second boiler.
Okay.
So what we're looking to do is also, we're putting in a second boiler, so if something should happen, that there's a lead and a lag, as to extend the life expectancy of the boilers. So putting in a second boiler, we would have to run a whole new exhaust plume for that boiler. We can't use the existing one that is there now.
Would that also help in terms of like if it, like I know this past winter it got really, really cold and there were pipes that burst, right? Would that like help?
That was not.
Was that not related to anything?
Not
Okay,
related.
never mind. Sorry.
It was in the foyer in between the building and when you walk into the gymnasium. It was actually a sprinkler head there that had split.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like burst pipe. Okay, never mind. Thanks.
So,
Quick question,
I'm
Scott.
sorry, Brad.
That's all right. Under the reclamation of the parking lot,
Yeah.
this is obviously something that would have to be done during the summer.
Yeah.
So, wouldn't do all schools. I didn't
Correct.
look all the way ahead, so
Right.
space them out over different years.
Yes and no. So, I believe the answer to that is yes, but we would also want to work with, we want to partner with the town on this one, because if the town is going out to bid, let's say with a particular vendor,
I understand.
we'll get like the best possible price, and more often than not, there are some schools that we might be able to do it. To give you an example, like the high school, we might be in a position where we could do the back parking lot and not do the front. So there's ways for us to,
Okay.
I think, to strategically do it, to take out one lot, and, you know, so it's possible that we can we can pull it off, but we haven't gotten to the point of the logistics of how we would. I don't venture to say that we would be doing all the same in the summer. It would be almost impossible.
Right. Okay, that was why I asked the question. Thank
And
you.
when we enter into these bonds, typically, these might be projects that would be over a 2-year period of time. Going to the second page, which is Glen Lake School, that's our newest building. And, but we are, you know, programming to do some roof repairs there in a few years. We did replace one of our boilers just recently, that's why it's colored in green. And then we have another boiler there as well, so we're looking to be proactive on that one. We were reactive on the one that we just did.
Because every year these boilers get inspected, state inspector comes in every 2 years and they look at the buildings. We have our folks looking at them as well and our contractors. In this particular year, even though the boiler was safe to run, it had a water leak on the inner jackets of it. And to do the repair was just thousands away from replacing it, so we opted to replace it with a high efficiency boiler.
So the one in green is actually, that's already been
It
done.
has been done.
Thank you.
So, as you go down, drainage near Elm, well, it's Elm Street. I apologize for that, it's Elm Street. So we tried a fix, and so far that fix
It's helped a
has
little.
helped a bit,
Yeah.
right? But it ponds a lot near the entrance to the school on both drives. And that has helped, so we're gonna monitor that, but I'm not sure if that is gonna work.
See, this is an
long-term.
issue now, like I said, with all this rain that we have, there is ponding at the entrance and the exits of Glen Lake. It's more of an issue in the winter time with the
Ice is
melting and the ice and it's a constant effort trying to keep it salted enough so that when the buses or cars are turning into or coming out of, that they're not sliding off of the road as they try to turn into the parking lot.
Line 31 is exploring full-day kindergarten based upon the availability of state building aid, and that's way out in the last year, $7.5 million. And that's, you know, depending upon what, where this goes. And I think the school board is going to be having a lot of conversations over the next year or two about future in our schools. If there is a direction of building a new school and perhaps embarking on full-day kindergarten, using Maple Avenue would make sense, and it might be very cost-effective, you know, to do that. You know, some have said, well, what are you going to do with, you know, Glen Lake? What are you going to do with Bartlett School? So I have had conversations with the school board about this during the retreat. We believe it's a good time to have a conversation with the select board in terms of the school board and the select board having conversations with how would we potentially repurpose buildings. So I have spoken on behalf of the school board. I have spoken to a couple of department heads. So one notion is that the library could go to Glen Lake potentially. You could use Bartlett as a community center. There's a lot of, you know, uses there. You could sell the buildings. You could add on to Glen Lake, but all of these are out there, and I just think it's time to have a more holistic vision. And I think this, you know, when we talked about it at the school board retreat, Ellen, I think that's, you know, the school board, you know, thought that it would be a good time to have some broader discussions with the select board about that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Ellen, on that.
It's long been my thought that, because sitting at these committee meetings, what do we have in the Canarville section of our town? I've long felt that a Parks and Rec center, a community center, that has a playground already and parking already, I would think if the town wanted to go in that direction, that the people probably would greatly appreciate it, because here we have everything else here in this section of town. But that'll be up to the select board and what they want to do with the facility, right there in the middle of Penardville. You know?
Yeah.
So, line 32, parking lot and drive overlay. So Brett, in this particular example, an overlay could be done easily because you're not ripping up anything.
Right.
And that might take like a few days to do that, and you'd be able to pull that one off. Other schools, we don't have that ability to do that. Same thing with replacing the existing board. You'll see that we're looking to use either a grant or a donation, on those. That particular school gets great visibility. There's a lot of traffic that goes by there. And, I know that when we had to do something with the elections this past year, we changed that high school one like super quick. There's a lot of utility, to those types of signs, and I think Glen Lake would be a prime target if that and Bartlett, I think, would be the next two that the school board would probably go for. And then security camera upgrades and panic alarm upgrades, so that's very similar. Any questions on Glen Lake before I move on?
What year was Glen Lake built? Do you remember?
Oh boy, it's 15. It's probably 15 years old now.
I think it was around 2006.
Okay, so it's even more than that.
2005, 2006, somewhere around there.
Oh, you don't have to give me an exact date.
All right, let's say 17.
Okay.
Approaching 20 years.
Yeah.
It's approaching 20
My son
years.
went there and died. Yeah, around 2007.
I was just thinking of approaching, but didn't we do some modifications?
We put on a modular
Yeah, it was like 4
classroom a couple of years back, and we added, how many, 4?
It was 7 units that
Oh,
equals
7,
4
yeah, I
classes.
thought it
4
was
classrooms, yeah.
4 class. That's where my number came from, 4 classroom.
Yeah. All right, so now going to Mountain View Middle School, locker room floors were on CIP for this current year. We did not accomplish that. So we bumped it to 25, 26 when we were able to do more of a comprehensive school renovation project using a bond. Fire panel, we have that programmed in. We have had issues with our fire panels, Randy, so at not only schools here, but also
Lightning
in
strikes
Boston.
seem to like our buildings.
Yeah. And those are not cheap. Cafeteria tables is also in there, and I think we're looking at potentially using our capital reserve fund for those. Window repairs, so when we did our project, we did a windows replacement project using grant funds. We could not use it to, that project did not include in it repairing certain windows, so what we found is we didn't need to replace, but we needed to do some repairs, so we've put that in that out year as well. Septic replacement, that's also been in there for a long time. We have an in-building transformer, so
We
Brandon?
have several transformers,
Yeah.
smaller transformers, where we have our main electrical distribution throughout the building, that we have it serviced every year, cleaned, and we just monitor the heat. They're over 30 years old, and so we keep them clean, but there is the potential because of the age that we might lose a transformer within the building, within a section of the building.
Hilltop stage improvements, we put these in there. We recognize that, that one is a priority 3 in the sense that it's not something that's mission critical, but it's something that we do have a really strong performing arts program in Goffstown. The middle school is a program that feeds into that, and it could use some improvements. We are renovating our theater as we speak. And there are some modest improvements that are needed there. Air handler replacements and the generator replacements, again, those are ones that we feel would be under that lease purchase. And then the one that always gives me anxiety is the cistern project phase 2. So this is for our fire suppression at Mountain View Middle School. It is a cistern that we made some repairs to it. Was it 2 years ago? Or?
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah. And
2 summers ago.
that was phase 1. to get it going again, but that's gonna be another fairly expensive project. Mountain View parking lots, roadway and sidewalk reclamation, again, that's a place mark number. There's an extensive number, that's a lot of roadway at that school, and you have the road that goes down to the lower fields. There's a lot of asphalt there, and there's some associated drainage that's gonna need to go along with that. If you look at the softball side, there's a lot of erosion there, so stay tuned on that one. I do wanna let the committee know that we're currently constructing a school bus turnaround. For lack of a better term, it's a big cul-de-sac where school buses only will go up to Mountain View on the left-hand side. They will pick up or drop off students. They will go around that cul-de-sac, and then they will exit the same way that they came in, so that we will not have commingling of parents and vehicular traffic and school bus traffic. Currently, or in the past, they have gone around the building, then they have to execute a left-hand turn near the softball field. Some parents are nice and they let them go through, others don't, and traffic just backs up and backs up and backs up. So that project is underway. Hopefully that'll be completed by the beginning of school. And it will not be remedy everything. But if it helps things by 20 or 25%, we'll take the win. And that's what we're shooting for. Is there a question, Brett?
Yeah. Excuse me, on the roadways and reclamations, and you said the septic, Randy, like 3 of them are underneath the
Yeah.
pavement.
Yes, the main
All of
one.
this would be combined and
Yeah,
together.
that one we would have to
Yes.
do combined.
Because it only makes
Under a
sense if
bond.
you're gonna do the big parking lot,
Yeah.
you would also do the
That's
septic
what I'm
systems at
thinking,
the
that's
same
all.
time.
And the cistern, where is that
The
located?
system, when you're coming into Mountain View and you take the left-hand turn, halfway up the hill across from the baseball field, there's a little cement building that sits on the.
Okay,
on the
I
ground.
know where that
That's
is.
the cistern tank.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question, Kimberly?
Yep.
So in that same area where we're talking about the cisterns, or cistern, it says, now I lost my place. It says $400,000, but it has the same explanation as
Yeah, see.
the,
Yeah, the one above it, yeah, I see that.
Yes.
I'll fix that.
okay, and is the price of one cistern the 400?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. It's
Okay.
one large tank. It's an
Okay.
80,000-gallon tank.
Because for a single-family home,
Mhm.
they're running close to 100,000 now. Does that make sense?
Wow.
Signage as well, looking to, we're trying to work with parent-teacher groups and others if they would help us on some of these things, as well as using grants, recognizing that that's not, you know, an incredibly high priority item, but communicating with the public is very important, and that's a means in which to do it. So there's a balance there, and so if we can leverage grants, or if we can partner with parent-teacher groups where the school district or grants are paying for some and they help us, so that's what we're endeavoring to do when we can. Their bleacher replacement, so we're looking to automate the bleachers. Right now, you have to pull them out.
It takes several
and
people to
It
get them
takes
out and
2 or
get
3
them back.
people to do that, whereas at the high school, it's all automated. Locker room, shower, individual stalls, that will more than likely be a budgetary item. Bathroom renovations, that will be part of the bond. So again, that building is 32 years old?
This came in 1990.
Yeah.
Did you say 93?
Yeah.
90, 91.
The next ones deal with air handlers and LED lighting dimming throughout the building. Again, we're trying to get that number, so Randy has been in communication with different companies. It's something that we added to the CIP matrix, but we didn't have enough time to get estimates on that.
Question.
Yep.
RTU, what's that?
Rooftop unit.
Okay.
And if I could, just on the LED lighting and why it is such a big thing to do, is if you go into our schools, the high school, the middle school, and even the elementary schools, you see these blue diffusers that you see that they have tacked to the ceilings to dim the lights. And I know there's a lot of students that actually can see the flickering in a fluorescent light, and it really gives them issues, which is why in many classrooms you will see these blue filters over the lenses of the lights, is because the students react because they can see things that my eyes can't pick up, but their eyes do.
Can also cause seizures.
And it's too light or it's too dark, and having the ability to adjust that to make it better for them.
The next is a lot of Steve stuff. So, what Steve and I have discussed is trying to programmatically include computer lab replacements, laptop cart replacements, security camera. I mean, certain things need to be programmed into the budget, and the notion of just when you can do it, pay for it, and have computers that all of a sudden they're 10 years old, it's like, we really need to get on replacement cycles of 4 or 5 years old, knowing that sometimes it gets stretched to 6 years, but you get to 6 years on IT equipment and you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, can I just touch on that? So laptop equipment, most districts will tell you that the laptops in students' hands are good for about 4 years. You can stretch them to 5, but that's a stretch. Because at that point, the batteries no longer go 8 hours for a school day, and you can get you can get half the day out of it, and then that's it. And certain devices, it's not cost effective to try to go through and start replacing things, because changing a battery in an iPad means taking the screen off, which is not something my staff is certified to do, and they get really expensive to do that because they're not necessarily serviceable. Some machines are not designed to be taken apart as well. We have one model machine that we have in service at the high school. The only way to service it is to take the glass off the display, which is held in with adhesive. So if you're not careful, you shatter the glass on the display, and now it's no longer serviceable. And you're sending it out to pay someone at a repair rate of $100+ an hour to do a piece of basic maintenance. And we see that when we start hitting the beyond end of life, trying to stretch it. Infrastructure stuff, Wi-Fi, switches, servers, phone systems, have a projected life expectancy of 5 to 7 years. Some of the items you'll see on CIP, 5 to 7 years was almost 5 years ago.
Yeah, so, spoiler alert for the budget committee, but like in September, we're going to ask to speak to the budget committee in non-public to talk about computer security and issues that we have. We can't talk about that stuff in a public session because it has to deal with cybersecurity.
Which the state, there's a state RSA 18966 Part 5, where the state has dictated minimum cybersecurity standards for schools, which require us to do audits. Those audits find things.
And we have to address those
which we have to address.
So,
and cybersecurity, if you have a cybersecurity come in 5 years ago and talk about what risk is, and then they look at it today, they're going to find very many different things. If anyone's been following the news with Nashua School District, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So that's something that we have to address in the short term, and that might be through budget transfers, et cetera. But we're going to talk to the budget committee and the school board. The school board already knows, but about the budget for the budget committee, why we're doing certain things, because we have to do it. The other thing that I wanted to share is that IT, whether it be the school or the town, it's integral to doing the jobs of providing the service to the citizens and our students, and it costs money. And I think in the past we've been kind of looking at it as an afterthought, and we'll try to do it here, and let's let it limp along, and we can't take that approach anymore because the vulnerabilities and the exposure when something goes bad is horrific. And so we have to be more proactive in that. So in our budgets, you're going to see more money in our school budget, probably to the tune of $100,000 or more every year, because we have to address cybersecurity type issues.
The other piece, just to go forward, is the model for technology as the resellers release it has changed over the last several years. when we put our phone system in 2017, you could go out, you could buy a phone system and you own it. Starting in January, that vendor, and most vendors, it's now a yearly subscription for your phone system. At the school district size, at a tune of $50,000 a year to have telephones. Because their model has changed where you don't buy it once, you pay every year for it. And we're seeing that across the state with different things.
But it's everywhere.
You
I mean, it's hard for you to-
you want Microsoft Office, it's now $10 a month, where you used to be able to buy it and own it.
Yeah, so it's
So we're gonna
companies
see a
are no
lot of that.
longer, you just don't go to the store and you buy the software and you own it. Now it's more software as a service and it's a subscription and you get automatic updates and those things, but you're paying either a monthly or an annual fee for it, as opposed to, oh, I bought Quicken, for $59 or, yes, you could probably still do that with TurboTax or something, but it's different now. So I just wanted to, keep you updated, on that. And the other thing, I know that you're not in the budget committee, but I do want to share with you that, we did switch over this past year. This district was mostly Apple, and we migrated over to PCs. We're able to now have way more devices in the hands of our staff. So now not just our teachers, but our paraprofessionals, some of our others in other departments have laptops because we have to communicate with them. They have to do work on these laptops as well. So we're able to have a lesser cost on those devices and more people having them in their hands, knowing that we have to spend that savings on things like course switches and Wi-Fi density projects to make sure that our system is robust. So we intentionally did this. We switched from Apple to PCs because we needed to use the cost savings into the infrastructure, the back room, infrastructure that we have. So I know that wasn't a popular decision amongst the hardcore Apple users, but it needed to be done. Going to the high school, very similar roof replacement projects. We do have, if you'll recall, we had a project where we did abate asbestos in the hallways at Goffstown High a couple of summers ago. We still have it in our tech hallway and then in certain rooms on the first floor. And then part of that would be retiling. Yep.
Yeah, I have to go back one line. Where to go? We have, in the same year, 2029, we have a new middle school and a new...
Oh, I apologize, you're right.
They're both in the same year, and
So the middle school, I forgot that one. That's at the bottom. I was on the bottom of that page, $60 million. I talked about that, earlier. So that's
Yep.
a placeholder for that. And you're saying, where is it? It's
you have 7,500,000 for the, where'd it go? It's on line
That's a conflict.
38,
Right.
Yeah,
okay?
Right.
And then, so they're both in the same year, I didn't know.
I did that, when I prepared this, I kind of did that intentionally, knowing that we have to discuss that as a
Yep.
board and with the community. It's like, what are we gonna do? Are we going to consolidate schools? Are we going to move one school into another? Because we talked about, so if you decide that you're
There are a
going to
number of
migrate into
options.
another school, it's gonna be a lot less expensive to go to Maple Avenue than it is to spend $7.5 million, and you can use that $7.5 million elsewhere. So, I apologize.
I just didn't
for
want
that.
anybody who
Yep.
looks through this saying, 2 schools in 1 year.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ellen. I'm glad that you pointed that out. Goffstown High School, again, roof replacements we've gone over. So exterior door replacements. And we try to chip away at this, when we can. We are doing the access controls
Yeah.
this summer, right?
Actually, it's in process, I left them
Okay.
today, but I mean, they hit some doors and they're looking at it going, well, we're gonna put it on there, but this door is gonna be a challenge because it doesn't really close, or it's warped, or one of those pieces because it's an older door,
Yeah.
probably from 20 years ago when it was put in.
These are doors, exterior doors?
Exterior doors. I mean, they close and lock, don't get me wrong, but...
Okay, that was kind of what...
But
Yeah.
it's one of those that, when they're coming in, they're trying to line the contacts for the sensors. It's one of those that, we can do this, but be aware if you fix the door, we're going to have to come back and redo it
Yeah.
because it's, the door's bowed.
Okay.
The next few, 63, 64, 65, which is the door replacements, drop ceiling in one of the rooms, and then painting of the lockers. They have been on CIP for a few years. We just put them into a bond. Because it's, again, it would be an entire school district renovation type package.
These are the hall lockers?
Correct.
Yeah, the hall lockers, which, by the way, things have changed. And most schools are not putting lockers in, so when they build new schools, they're not, especially high schools, they're not including lockers. So I think it was Salem or.
They don't
I went
use
in-
them.
What?
They don't use them.
They
at
don't
all.
use them, they wear backpacks. So what happened when we replaced the floors at the high school in the 300 and 400,
Yeah, it was in the
we
300.
did not, we
took them
didn't, we took
out.
the lockers out and didn't replace them because students aren't using them. A generator, we have been talking about a generator forever, and that's a discussion that we've had with public safety officials, so the police and fire chiefs, about and emergency management in particular. Right now, Mountain View Middle School is the emergency shelter. It's not the best location for that. The high school is, but we always keep on talking about getting a grant, getting a grant, getting a grant. We haven't been able to get a grant, and that need doesn't go away. So again, that might be something that we entertain putting into a municipal lease. More to come on that one. AC unit replacements. We've got a lot of air conditioning units that are aging. Randy and Dawn, who is the facility supervisor, have a long list of all of our mechanical systems and their ages. I would say that probably 60% of them need to be replaced in the next 5 years. So just, we had one fail at Mountain View Middle School in the music room, we had to replace it,
$23,000.
$23,000. So,
These are only specific areas within a school that have the AC, right?
correct,
That's
yeah,
right.
not, we don't have air
I
conditioning.
know it's not through
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
but-
So you'll also see that GHS door security, so this was something that we were able to get a grant. So I just wanted to let you know that that was about 100 and, we budget 150, but it's gonna be a little less than that, right?
I think it was 150, 160.
It was? Okay.
Something like that. We get a public safety infrastructure grant that paid 100.
Okay.
So the district had to pay the balance.
Again, replacing heating and air handler replacements. So we've got AC and then heating and air handler replacements at the high school. And, conservatively, that could be $1.5 million. So that goes back to what I was saying before about how are you going to replace just HVAC alone when you've got probably $2 to $2.5 million of HVAC projects? How are you going to do it if you're only putting in $250,000 in a capital reserve fund? It's almost impossible. Thus the reason for some sort of a municipal lease purchase. The turf field is almost complete. Hopefully we can get power. If anybody knows anybody at Eversource, please let me know.
Yep.
You do?
I deal with them all the time.
Oh, let's talk after the meeting. What are you doing tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning? I'm not joking. GHS parking lot, again, that's in the 26 time period. We've got 3 exterior stair units at Goffstown High School, and we just did one of them. So we have another 2 to go. And window replacements, when we did the windows project using a grant, it was help me Randy, the second and fourth, right?
It was down on the tech wing side.
We did the tech wing side, but the
Yes.
ones that we need to do are a lot of the other ones.
On the 300 and
Yeah,
400.
right. Replace 4 doors in the theater.
Are these the doors that slam when you're running a school meeting and people go in and out?
Those
Yes.
are 2 of them, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And they also slam when you're doing a performance. So I have been asked to find a way to do that sooner, but we might.
I'll lobby for school meetings.
Yeah. Well, no, because we're doing this project, and that was the first thing. It's like, here we are, we're renovating this thing, and someone leaves leaves the room, and it's like, boom, boom. Theater edition,
Hasn't that been on there forever?
it has, and
It's
it's,
been
and
on
it-
there for a
and it's, and this is another one, when the school board does their due diligence and they meet with the community, and, you know, I envision a lot of that. You have to prioritize what you think you want to include, and we put this on here because we know that there was a need for it, but we also know that there's a cost to it, and as the community and the school board talk, and they come together with like what a number will be, it may be included, it might not be included, but I don't think it would be fair to those who believe that it is needed, and I think I'm one of them, that you wouldn't have it on there. So, at least for discussion purposes.
And I would say 4 years ago, we thought we were going to do this project. We had
Yeah.
engineers, we had architects, extensive planning and meetings talking about this addition, and then other things happened in it. But it stayed on the list because we put so much effort into it, the work and plans and the documents to do it. It stays on the list until either
So,
someone says.
I don't know who's watching out there in GTV land, but we did get a very nice donation, $500,000 donation for that turf field. If there's anyone who really likes performing arts and who would like to be a nice benefactor, we will gladly talk to you about a project like that. And-
Say it louder.
Okay?
The
So-
arts are always forgotten.
Well, that's
Or,
why
you know, they come in last.
we are, but that's why
I haven't
that's
been
why
over
I'm
there.
saying that. It's like, you know, I'm sure there are people out there that might want to make a nice donation, and we will be more than happy to have that discussion. So, theater control booth, again, when we did this project was mostly, was funded through our capital reserve fund. It was seats, lighting, ceiling, tiles, painting, and then floor LED lighting, but we didn't, and we're doing, you know, painting, but it's not, there's other things that we could not do, that they do lack a lot of storage there, the control booth. When you look at the bathrooms that are in the lobby, those are also pretty old. So again, all those would be in that district-wide school renovation package. Sorry for the typo, bathroom renovation, I'll correct that one, by the gym. Replace carpeting in the info center, replace furniture in the info center. We got a lot of people complaining about how uncomfortable the chairs are, and I don't know if it was you, Samantha, who put that complaint in, or no?
I don't think it was me.
Wasn't you?
That furniture in the info center was there when I started at Goffstown
Yeah.
High School in the year 2000.
So, replacing the sound system in our larger areas, install LED lighting, obviously, that's a big item. Repurpose the step room with new seating and a projection system, remodel showers in the boys' locker room, rebuild the wall in room 407, rebuilding the football, that is done. So that is in process right now. Oh, concession stand, I apologize. The press box is being done. The concession stand, we believe that we have another donor lined up to take care of that and to potentially put in bathrooms. So going back to, Joanne, what you were saying was that we have potentially, well, one donor, potentially two, who are willing to support athletics. If there is anyone out there that would support other programs in the community, especially the performing arts, you know, please contact any school board member or anybody in the school system, myself. We would love to have a conversation with you, or if you know of grants, would love to have a conversation.
Question, would the concession stand be the same footprint the current one has now?
Negative.
No, negatory.
We were looking to actually add restrooms to that concession stand.
I heard that.
We would more than like, it might have to be redone, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay. Was this looked at as they put in the new field and everything?
Huh?
Was that looked at when they put in
No.
about the location of where it would be and all of that?
We have since looked at that, but this donor did not come forward until after that whole thing was
Okay.
designed. You know, that whole notion, if you build it, they will come. And had we known, it would have been a completely different story. but we did not know. So
Okay.
I believe in having some preliminary conversations with folks who do design that we can accommodate bathrooms and a concession stand in that general area.
General area.
It wouldn't be what I would want to do if I could do it all over again, but, you know, we're encumbered a little bit by, now we have lighting and bleachers and other things that we have to contend with, so.
Thank you.
Drainage has been an issue. Same thing, like, it's ponds.
This is a real big
Yeah.
issue in the wintertime. As you come into the high school and you're driving around by the kitchen area, turning around the parking lot, heading down by GTV, it's so ledgy right there that the water does not absorb into the ground. It runs right over the top of the parking lot in the wintertime. Again, a very hard area to manage to keep safe in the back of the building.
And goes on to the softball field.
At times it does.
Upgrading our core switches, we've been able to take care of that this year.
That's partially federal, it's partially
Federal.
grant funded and partially budget funded. We managed to get a 40%, 40/60 grant for that, where we pay 60, they pay 40.
You'll see item number 89 is GHS one-to-one devices, and that is something that the administration and school board are having conversations about. It has not been determined, but it is there as a place
What
mark.
is it?
That would
So-
be giving every student.
So most districts in the state provide their students a laptop to do schoolwork, because most of your textbooks are now moving to online only. All of you can't buy a set of encyclopedias anymore, they don't sell them. So most of those research tools, those instructional tools, are not available in paperback. They've stopped printing them, and they've moved to electronic delivery, which the only way to do electronic delivery is to provide the student a device. Right now in Goffstown, our student-to-device ratio is about 3-to-1, which means I have one computer for every 3 students. Now that generally sounds pretty good on paper, but to put it in context, it means Goffstown High School with 1,100 roughly kids, and I have 300 laptops for them.
Now, these devices, these don't go home with them.
Most districts, they do. So, but what you have to understand is most districts as well, we're talking a $300 to $400 laptop that they keep for 4 years. Whereas when I replace a laptop cart, it's a $1,000 laptop that we keep for 6 to 7 years. So most districts do send the devices home because they're designed for kids to do the schoolwork and everything related.
So once they've gone through 4 years,
They-
the laptops come back to the school, but by then they're outdated.
Yeah, but you're buying a device that has a 4-year life expectancy, is what it is.
Okay. Boy, am I old school.
Most districts go with a Chromebook, and Chromebooks have a 5-year life expectancy. You buy them after 5 years, they're obsoleted. Some districts go with Microsoft Surface tablets and those types of devices. Again, it's like a $350 to $400 device, and they have a 4 to 5 year life expectancy. So
Without the school books, the little hands-on books, and without a laptop, what do those students do?
well, I said, we can still buy textbooks, but most of the textbooks now come with, to do the activity, here's the QR code you scan.
Right, you need the computer still.
Right, so we can do that. I said, I have carts in the building, but it's a matter of scheduling, okay, I need it at this time, and he needs it at that time, and doing that juggle of trying to get them around to make things work.
So they can't do homework at home.
The family has to have a device at home. We
And
learned,
and
Not
or
everybody does.
connectivity.
yeah, and we
Yeah.
learned during the pandemic, I sent home 20% of our enrollment, we had to send home a device during the pandemic for them to be able to do schoolwork when we went to 100% online. And again, those devices, that was 2020, and most of those devices that we sent home were the stuff that we had decommissioned because it was end of life at that time.
So I think, this is something obviously that's high on the priority or, the list of what the school board and the administration is working on.
Why did you give it just a 3 for priority?
Because if you take a look at everything that we've got going on, it is not something that is mission critical, it would be something that would be very good to continue with. But if you take a look at whether or not we have air handlers and heat in the building versus a one-to-one device program, those are going to trump that.
The school can still operate with the laptop cart model that we
Yeah.
have, and it does work. It would be better with more access to technology, especially at the higher grades. And it's challenging because there's just not enough tech to go around. And as we move to, as the textbook publishers are moving to, the content is digital, the activities are digital, it gets challenging to fully utilize the tool that we're paying for, because some kids have tech at home, some kids don't have tech at home. We can cover it when we're in the building, but we can't cover it the rest of the time with what we
My
have.
concern is for those students that don't have the option, they don't have these tools, and what are they losing out on?
Learning.
Yeah,
Would there be a
exactly.
savings from the textbook?
Yeah, so that's something that's what administration is working on. So it's not just, it's textbooks, it's also the laptop carts themselves. So, when we put
Some of
these.
this is double dipping, right? If
Some
we
of
do
it.
one, we wouldn't do the other.
Some things would scale back.
Yeah, so exactly it. So I think the other thing, honestly, is that the administration, the school board has to look at the research in terms of just because everyone else is doing one-to-one device, I'm not saying everybody else is, but what are the academic studies showing? Are kids performing better because they have this device or not? Okay, and I don't know the answer to that, but I know that there is research that is ongoing. I will also tell you that in the younger grades, we still use the traditional workbook for math and other things, which is a tried and true method. Yes, it has the ability to scan a QR code or go online to get supplemental assistance, more, enrichment, tutoring, you name it, but the tried and true method of figuring out the problem in a workbook is still very, much out there.
And in some grades, you want to balance the screen time anyways.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to hand every kid at Glen Lake an iPad.
Right.
I mean, that's not a good fit.
My thought is more towards the high school kids who are preparing for college or their future
Jobs,
jobs.
yeah.
And, how is that going to impact them?
Yeah, it's definitely something we're looking at. When someone asked the question earlier about are they effectively double dipping, if you will? The high school right now, I think, has 8 computer labs. I think they would only need 2 to 3 if we went one-to-one, because there are certain things that you can't do on a one-to-one laptop. You're not going to be teaching CAD on a $400 laptop. It's not going to run it.
You can't do that?
No. You're not going to be doing certain computer science or certain graphic arts things on that low-end laptop, because it's effectively an internet browsing device that runs Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. But the lab that I have that teaches Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, they don't necessarily need that. The library lab where they're doing the research, they won't need that. So some of those would go away, and it would help balance some of that cost out.
Right. Okay. Right, and that makes sense.
So now, computer lab replacements, security camera upgrades, and then the secondary switches. These are all things that we talked about before, and/or they represent the kind of the backroom operations of IT. Any questions on the high school?
Just one on the computer lab. Is that already paid for?
I'm trying to get the computer labs on a replacement cycle. So again, I got 8 labs. In the school budget right now, I have enough to do 2 a year at the high school. I don't necessarily have them in the other buildings. So we have budgeted to redo the library lab at the high school this year, which is 50 machines.
Yeah.
Most of my labs are 25.
Okay, just so it was green highlighted, that's all.
Which means we did it.
Yeah, so one lab was done, but I think if you look at
But
it, it's a
it's an
recurring every
ongoing-
year.
Yeah,
every year.
I see that also.
Yeah. I've got labs at the high school. The one that I'm phasing out right now is almost 10 years old.
All right, so on the next page, which is line 94, and Steve, can I embarrass you?
Go for
Can
it.
you stand up, please?
Oh, you want my bowl of keys? Yeah. My backpack. Hold on.
So, right now,
here's my high school keys.
And
How can you remember which one is to
You
which?
don't.
he.
You don't think you tried them until you find the one that fits.
Oh my gosh.
You don't know Steve, do you?
But yeah, I mean, I have a ball of keys. This will get me into every school but the high school, and the ball on the bottom is Goffstown High School.
So, obviously, having more of a single core system, and Randy's been talking about this for a while. I mean, the amount of time that we're wasting fumbling through keys. When we, for let's say access control,
Yeah,
that's
so-
mostly exterior,
Yeah,
so
so-
like one key does it.
Right, so we're putting key fobs in to do the outside doors.
Right.
And I'm not doing every outside door. Goffstown High School has 47 exterior doors. I'm not putting a card reader on every exterior door, because you don't need to fob into the doors that are connected to a classroom.
Yeah.
But the main office lobby, or the gym lobby, or the theater lobby, that would make sense.
So these are great because,
And when someone loses this, I can just turn it off.
Right.
yeah.
If I lose this ball of keys, they're changing every lock in every building, and
Yeah, so that's another thing that is kind of important, just having gotten to it. Seal coating and line striping, this is an ongoing thing. We didn't do it this year. We did it last year. So Norman Road, this is the property that is behind the high school that the voters approved purchasing. And I believe we put in monies for site engineering. Custodial cleaning equipment, this is something that Randy, I'm very thankful that he has put that in there. And we have auto scrubbers, ride-on cleaning machines, and they only have a life expectancy of so many years, so they have to be replaced on a cycle. So we've done that. What? Okay.
Question.
No, you can't ride it. I tried it. You're not allowed to be certified. No. It's like a Zamboni, almost.
Okay, no, get away from that. On the, you say the Norman Road, I mean, I know where that is.
So it's behind the high school.
But behind the high school, if they use that land and develop it, would Norman Road be an access, or?
We don't know, because we are gonna have to do the site engineering. So right now, there is an access road off Norman for us to get there.
Yeah, but that's pretty narrow strip of land.
Oh, it is. And there are,
And
you
because you
know,
got the
there would be
Villa
obviously
Cemetery out there too.
access through the high school itself. So we don't know, because
Okay,
there
that-
are multiple ways to get in there. It all depends upon how you want. Like, I can tell you flat out that if we were to build another school back there, we probably would put multiple access points there. One of those access points would probably be the current, right behind the bleachers, it would be the current practice field. So, and then you would replace those fields that you lose over in another area. So that it would connect, a road to connect the high school to, say, a new elementary or a new middle school. So, but we're not engineers, but I would envision at least 2, if not 3 access points to that school or that land.
So that would be part of the reason why the site engineering on the future project development.
Correct.
Thanks.
And depend upon what the school board decides, if we
I know.
decide to put something, and when that happens.
I just know the access road, quote
It
unquote,
would be
off of
Norman.
Norman Road.
It would be Norman.
I know what it is now.
So line number 98, it's in green at 80,000, but it should be down to 49,950 because Randy found a used one in Milford.
With very low hours.
Yeah, like 90 hours, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great use.
So thank you for finding a used piece of equipment. Barnard Park, this is a conversation with Rick Wilhelmi at Parks and Rec. Portable generator for elementary schools. So we talked about a generator at the high school. Superintendent and has, had discussions with Randy and myself, Steve too, probably about having a generator that might be on a trailer, that if power goes out, it could be trailered over, hooked up to that building to give them power. So this high school would still be the emergency shelter, but there would be the ability to have a generator that would go on a trailer, right?
To go to each of the schools, for example, like refrigeration units, they're only good for a certain number of days. So if we put transfer switches in all the schools, which we're looking to do, and size it properly, so if we had a generator that we would back up to the building, hook it up, get the freezers back to temperature, and bounce it around the district, making sure that the assets within the building are safe.
So there's no generators at any of the schools, right?
Only Mountain View.
Just Mountain
Mountain
View.
View. The next,
And
Steve?
to touch on that, the one at Mountain View does not cover the whole building.
No,
Oh, okay.
it does not even cover the kitchen.
Oh, really?
All the
Yeah.
elements of the kitchen, it does not.
Yeah, so I should give you another reason why having a generator at the high school, aside from it being the emergency shelter, a better choice for that, more centrally located, is that the high school has a lot of the network, right, it's the hub.
It's a center
of-
for-
All of our infrastructure runs through the high school. Our phone system, our internet, our server infrastructure, everything. If the high school loses power, the phone systems in the building will operate until the battery packs at the high school run out. Then incoming calls will no longer be routed to buildings. Now I have some old-fashioned landlines
Yeah, we've got
in the
plan-
buildings to make phone calls
We got
out
plans
and
B
in.
and plan C, obviously redundancy, but there's so much that the high school is the hub for, that having a generator there is, it's no longer, let's wait for a grant. It's something that we think we need to do sooner than later. So now going with next generation Wi-Fi deployment and upgrading core switches, we were able to accomplish those. They're in progress as we speak,
The
so.
high school Wi-Fi equipment was ordered back around Christmas. The last pieces of them were delivered today. We haven't installed them yet, but the
So-
FedEx truck dropped them off today.
So it goes back, Gail, to what you were saying about, hey, it'd be great to have devices, right? So some kids bring their own devices, and then everybody has their own computer. And by the way, some of these computers cost $1,000.
Not everybody has their own.
I know, some do. But there's a lot of students who use these, and it sucks up the bandwidth at the high school. So we were running into big time problems because there's so many people connecting to the network using their smartphones that we needed to increase our Wi-Fi.
The network infrastructure that we're in the process of replacing was originally purchased a decade ago with a life expectancy of 5 to 7 years. So if you ask any student who attended Goffstown High School how the Wi-Fi is in the building before April vacation, we started swapping it, it worked when it wanted to.
But this is upgraded, right?
We have replaced the
Yeah.
equipment, and it'll show back up in CIP in 5 to 7 years because it'll have reached end of usable life. Because again, most tech infrastructures, that's the expected life expectancy. You can drag them out a couple years beyond that, but after that, they just kind of fail.
So it's safe to say we can add it from 28 to 29?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you want to
Yeah,
That's a good question.
it'll probably be due around that time period.
Which line is this?
So it'll probably be
101.
This is 101?
added to column
Yeah.
Q. I will get back to you on that, what that number was. We'll have to figure out
Yeah.
if it was 130,000 now. it
Yeah,
might
but
be-
it's also
Yeah.
attached to Mountain View Middle School
Yeah,
and
right.
Goffstown
Yep,
High School.
yep.
It's not a
So-
problem, just to
Yeah.
put a placeholder.
But yes,
Yeah.
but that would be wrapping back around in the 5 to 7 year window.
Okay. So if I don't do it this time, I can just put it in next year's
Yeah.
CIP, so. I mean, when I do it next year,
Yeah,
I'll add it.
Yeah, we'll
into
put it
the-
back
okay.
in.
Add.
because
okay,
there's other
Wi-Fi
pieces that'll be
in
wrapping
6
around.
to 7 years, okay.
Yeah.
Server replacements, data backup and retention for staff laptops, we didn't accomplish that. These are a couple things that they might see themselves in the budget. We gotta figure out a way to get
We do.
these things
Mike,
done.
those servers reached end of projected life in 2019. It's 2023. We retired all the rest of them in 2019 because they were purchased in 2010 with a 5 to 7 year life expectancy.
But this one is done too, right?
No.
No, if
Has
it's in
not been
red,
done.
we haven't done it.
Has
but
not
we-
been done.
But we have to do it, so that's
It's
why
one
I
of
put
those
it.
that it still works. It's like buying a car, they keep running until they don't. And then when they don't, you have the problem. And these pieces of equipment they are still running, they are still chugging along until they don't.
Just one of those, keep your fingers crossed?
Yeah,
It's been.
yeah.
We
And then what
we
happens
swapped-
is he
we
comes
swapped
into
it out
my-
with some-
I'm
We
sorry.
swapped it out with something that was 5 years newer a year ago to get to the 2010 retirement, the 2010 server that was bought from one that was from 2005 to stretch it.
So that's why this is, more, I mean, when I look back at 3 or 4 years ago to what we're doing now with this, I mean, it's much more intentional as it needs to be, because this whole, let's hope it lasts, and then, Steve comes in with his head down saying, I need $40,000, the server's failing, and like, okay, what are we gonna do? Like, that's not the right way to operate any organization. So we're trying to at least acknowledge that what we have, know that we can proactively replace it before it dies and we're in crisis mode. Next one was Promethean boards. So almost all of our classrooms have Promethean boards. These are interactive, they're very large, like.
It's basically, every classroom has effectively like a 65-inch TV that they use to project the teacher's laptop so the kids can see it. And they're touch. So that they can go through and they can walk the kids through without the teacher standing behind a podium. They can walk the kids through, you can write on it like a regular whiteboard. They do a lot of those pieces. The younger kids, they bring the kids up to actually solve the math problem on the board type thing with the virtual pens.
Yeah,
It's a teaching tool.
Yeah, it's a really good tool.
Again, boy, am I old.
I have a question for the iPad replace, sorry, I'm skipping down to the next one.
It's okay.
Just get through this. The iPad replacement, so if we've switched to non-Apple products, what iPads are we still
I'm
using?
still keeping the iPads because they fit that teaching model a lot better than the other options that I have at the moment.
So when we say teaching model, mostly younger students and special education.
The bulk of my iPads are at Glen Lake Kindergarten.
Yep.
Because their Android does not I cannot find an Android device that will last in that environment. So in that scenario for what we're doing, the iPads are the best tool.
Yeah, thank you.
We have, I think there's one, they also have them in first grade. And then we try to transition them over to regular laptops. There's a few in special in the higher grades. I think Mountain View has a card of them for a specific program. The high school has a card of them for specific programs. I don't have as many iPads as I do regular laptops.
No, that makes total sense, thank you.
The
So now for the
Android
dessert.
don't work very well anyway.
It's hit or miss. I have a card of Androids at the high school that work well for what they're used for. It's a matter of finding the right applications and the right tools. And for the early learning bracket, those tools just aren't available.
Okay.
Now the moment we've all been waiting for.
I'm so excited to find out what
Yes,
this is.
I do too. No, actually, Steve has already prepped me on this.
Which one's this?
The one,
What
the
are
virtual
virtual
reality
kits?
This is the
Okay.
headsets?
I'm sorry, what?
We're giving them the headset?
Yeah, so we're looking at a kit from Class VR to bring that piece in. The current state and national tech standards have them written into it as part of the standards for education.
But not funded.
Not funded, but it's part of the, this is what we're supposed to be doing model. And they were put into the last revision, which was done, I hate to say, almost 10 years ago. So we're a little behind on catching up to that piece, because we just revised our standards and found that they had brought those in.
Is the 25,000 per kit?
No, is not. They're
You have them in a cycle, that's why.
in a cycle. I think my last quote was just the kit itself was 19 or 20,000, but there's subscriptions and other pieces that go along with it.
Yeah, you got 25,000 in there in, programmed in.
A program, trying to get the cart and all the other attachments that go with it.
Okay.
And the goal is to do certain, I'm not going to buy one for every classroom, but the intent is to try to get one per building.
And if you've ever seen the Randy Loring avatar, it's amazing. It's amazing.
So the focus for this are the field trips and instruction pieces that you can't, and the instruction pieces you can't do by taking the kids to a field trip in the greater New Hampshire area, or to look at the things that are very hard to learn on paper.
Could you give me an example?
If you're teaching space,
Okay.
astronomy, human cells, biology, for the younger grades to be able to see it. Heck, even dinosaurs, Egyptian pyramids, where they can walk through the pyramid and see the environment without having to transport them to a museum that has an exhibit. The set we're looking at has about 400 virtual field trips in those areas, covering everything from literature and English study to...
Wait a second, Steve. We
space
could do
science.
virtual tours of school buildings and town buildings?
I feel like it's kind of a bummer though. I feel like
the
half the
budget
fun is
committee?
going, is
Yeah.
like,
Is it
you get,
possible?
you know, you get the bag lunch, you go to Boston, you go to the Museum of Science, you look at the mummies,
And this is not
like.
necessarily taking away from that, but it's filling, the idea is we're aligning to a lot of the science curriculum pieces, so when you're studying the human body and you're dissecting a cell, you can go into the cell and see how everything interacts.
Making the magic school bus a reality.
Yeah, basically.
Seems pretty
It's
wild.
not, the goal is not to replace the field trips. The goal is to supplement the instruction.
But is this a 2 or is this a 3?
It's probably a 3. Well, no, it's a 2 because it's a standard. Yeah, it's a standard.
It's
So it's not, it's something that we're gonna have to do. It's not like, oh, you may choose to do it. It's, now it's written into the standard, so it's gonna be expected that you will do it.
It's-
So all students have to have exposure to virtual reality?
Yeah.
It's written into the National Technology Standards for Education to expose them to virtual reality, augmented reality is in there. I forget the exact language. So we're
Somebody
trying to
do some
get
lobbying.
some exposure, to meet the exposure piece, a little bit across the grades, and we're tying it into their science curriculum, is basically the targeted plan.
Okay.
I was gonna say, 1 per building isn't gonna cut it.
Right, but again, if you're looking at a couple of assured learning experiences in each
Virtual
grade,
school
1
learning
per
is
building
about that.
would cut that.
Okay.
Because you do,
Maple
like-
might need 2, but again, we're trying to track the history science curriculum
Yep.
and those lower
Yep.
the grades. Could there be more options for them at the high school level? Potentially.
Yep.
But let's
Right.
start with 1 per building and see how it,
Ellen, I'm
How
just
they fit.
thinking, like, you can use virtual glasses for school board meetings and policies. Thinking,
Yeah, me using the
I
technology.
think it's gonna be wonderful.
I just want to point that out to the naysayers out there, that there's lots of cool tech out there. We don't need everything, but this is part of the standards. They
It's a
just-
standard.
it's part of the NIST standards, yes.
Yeah, and then lastly, it's the phone system upgrade, and that's in the next couple of years. That's part of that, lease.
Yes, our phone system, Cisco
Falls out
is
of-
dropping support for it in January of '24. That just means that there are no more updates, security patches. That's the end of supported life for the hardware. Does that mean I can't buy replacement parts on eBay or Amazon? I absolutely will continue to do so, but it's one of those that after, you can run stuff beyond end of life for a little while, and then when it dies, it becomes expensive. And we're trying to build it into the budget going forward. The biggest challenge with our phone system is Cisco has moved to the you pay every year to use your phone system model. And a lot of the vendors who I've talked to in other districts have all moved to the you pay every year for your phone system. We have 700 outside lines in Goffstown in the schools. I have 700 outside phone lines. So that gives you the context of the number of phones.
So if the equipment is no longer being
Supported?
supported and parts would no longer, well, you could find parts, but parts from them would no longer be available, do you still have to pay
Well,
per
right
year
now,
for
we,
that system?
right now what we have is we have a perpetual license, which was we buy it, we own it. And that's what we have, is we bought it and we own it.
But then they're gonna
Okay.
charge us per
But it's one of
subscription.
those that, we ran into an issue beginning this year that, like, I have a piece on our phone system that allows us to forward calls to cell phones. Well, it stopped working with the iPhone 14 because you have to buy an upgrade to support it. Well, we were still supported, so it was covered. But when the iPhone 15 comes out and it doesn't work anymore, we're going to start seeing those scenarios where this doesn't work, that doesn't work. I can buy telephones that fit it, a Cisco brand phone, but the newer model phones won't be compatible with our system. So right now I'm buying refurbished, which is great, there's a market for them, but up until a certain point, and then I can't buy refurbished phones anymore. So we're trying not to get caught in that trap.
Okay.
Because replacing the entire system and every telephone is going to be expensive. And if I can do it in a way that we kind of keep it alive and then budget and replace the brain effectively and kind of stretch it, it'll work. But we know that going forward, the quote that they gave me to get the new licensing, not the servers, but just the licensing for it, was over $40,000 a year.
Wow.
So,
Do we have Cisco?
No, the town is on, looks like Polycom?
Oh, okay.
But it's similar in that
It's the same concept.
so Scott, jumping ahead to, when we look at our bottom line,
Right.
and the magic number at the bottom on line, whatever, that is 132. What jumps out at me is that the 25-26 year is 10 million versus some of the others. And that is because a lot of these things that you talked about going into that municipal lease or bond, like that's gone.
Everything that would potentially go into it. So what I did was, I reached out to the municipal bond bank, and they gave me $10 million bond and what that would look like under rates for 10, 15, 20, at different amortization schedules.
Okay.
So in reality, what you would be looking at is in that 25 or 26 year, that first year, you're paying an interest only on the bond, and then I can tell you, just give me 1 second, to give you a rough estimate of what that would look like, because it's not going to be $10 million, it's going to be, a lot less than that.
The reason why that's so high is because it's adding up everything that bond
You
would
got
pay
it,
for,
that's
but
all.
we won't have that $10 million to
You
do
got
that
it. I just
year.
want, right, I think what we were trying to do was to demonstrate that we've got $10 million worth of CIP items
Right.
that are bondable, and we've got about $4 million, and that can change. I mean, we might see that we could maybe do more under the municipal lease purchase or less, so that those numbers might change a little bit. But let's just say that so for 10, if we go with a 20-year, amortization schedule on a $10 million note, you would be looking at, in the first year, so that would be in 2026, your first payment would be $250,000, and then in the years after that would be your interest only, you'd be looking at $904,000 in the first year, $883 in the second year, $863, and it kind of goes down. You can do, what's the word I'm looking for? Level debt schedules, but this one that they gave me wasn't one of those. So again, it wouldn't be 10.8 million. No, it would be more like $900,000 than 860. It would be like that.
Okay.
What is the average length of the municipal bonds?
They said 12 to 15 years.
Okay.
And if you give me a second.
I understand the rationale, the way
Now,
you have it laid out. I just
that-
wanted to kind of
I have to clarify that. I just want to make sure the minutes are right. I want to clarify what I just said. On things like HVAC, if we do anything IT-wise, no more than 5, usually 4.
And if it's buildings.
Right, if it's buildings, it's way longer, but if it's IT, no more than 5, target 4.
You don't want to bond and pay for something that will be obsoleted and have to be replaced before you finish paying for it.
Right, definitely.
And most IT equipment, because it's a 5 to 7 year life expectancy, you don't want to bond it for more than 5 years, because at that point, you're replacing it.
But that's a budget issue. Okay.
Yeah, so it all depends upon what you're quote-unquote leasing and the length of those leases. IT short, building stuff can be longer.
And then Scott, the only other comment that I have, and of course you can open it up to everybody else, but everything's either 2s or 3s. You don't have any 1s. You don't have any like urgent. I mean, so we're looking at 23, 24, 25. What? Are there any of these that you're like, yeah, this has got to get done? That's just a comment I noticed. Everything's 2s and 3s.
So, Scott, if I may just
Yeah.
make sure that the committee's on the same page
Yeah.
with you. Column K, 23, 24 is your current year
Yeah.
that you just started.
Yeah.
So really, when you're looking at the budget impacts, I think you'd be starting with L when you're looking at projects that are
Yes,
upcoming.
and that's the tricky part, because the town is on a different, fiscal type calendar than their January, to December, and we're July through June. So it's always tricky when we do CIP, it's like, whose fiscal year are we working off of
Yeah.
here?
But I
That's
think
part of why
she's
we kept
asking
the
about
letters.
the project priority
Okay, that was,
specifically,
yeah.
and if I may, you're using your current capital reserve fund for emergency.
yeah, if something was like, oh my God, urgent, yeah, we would either use our capital reserve fund, or I gotta
Sorry,
find a
so-
way in our
Yeah,
budget
okay.
to do a budget transfer. So, to give you a good example, the Bartlett boiler, like, we used the capital reserve fund. I'm sorry, the Glen Lake boiler was on its last leg, and we used the capital reserve fund for that particular purchase, so.
Or you could touch on the Wi-Fi infrastructure one
Right.
that we just did, when the Wi-Fi collapsed in the buildings in the fall. It was, Scott had to find in the budget the money to order the replacement equipment.
Yeah.
It had been in CIP as a 2 or a 3, but it got to the point where it was
So-
non-functional.
So what we were able to do in that case was that because we got grants on laptops, so we didn't have to enter into our laptop lease, we deferred it one more year, so we can pay for the Wi-Fi, so you have to scramble in those situations, just the way that it goes. I do agree with you that there probably are some things that are, maybe urgent, I'd have to look through it, but there's, I don't know, like,
I mean, we take the assessment that you give us and it kind of wraps into the whole
Yeah,
process,
I don't-
so it's just
I
something
don't know, Randy,
to
do you think
consider.
there's anything that's like urgent,
Well,
like,
for me, anything that is urgent, we do.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
We do, it's taken care of, we don't put it off.
I'd say for me, it would be the server piece and my urgent ones are.
But we did them.
No, the ones that we
Oh,
haven't done yet.
right,
the
it's what's in
backup,
red,
the server,
yeah.
the phone system, those are the ones that are
Oh,
I
right.
know are
Yeah.
coming and that we
Done.
have to do something.
Right.
They're alive, they're working, but when they stop working, they will be, I'll be in his office and he'll be scrambling to find a way to address it, because things shut down.
Jim, did you come?
Well, it's more of a political question. First impressions count. I think some of your planning board members who react to first impressions. So, looking at year 25, 26, we understand that that's to be financed over time, so that doesn't represent an annual cost. But put yourself in the seat of some of our planning board members who aren't going to understand that concept initially, and are going to say, "Oh my gosh, you're going to pay $10 million. It's going to cost $10 million. How can you present this so when they first look at it, they don't draw that conclusion?
So what I can do for you, and please understand that the school board met a couple of weeks ago, and Randy and I are working on all these things as we speak. I literally started to getting amortization schedules and financing schedules. So what I can do is I can plug in a middle of the road approach, and basically ask you, and you report to the planning board to say, okay, it makes an assumption that they're going to use a 20-year bond for the $10 million in this year, and this is the amortization schedule, and I can plug in those numbers. And then the same thing on a municipal lease, it's saying that they're gonna go with a 2 municipal leases, 1 IT, or maybe no IT, and all of it's $4 million, it's all building related, and we're gonna do a 10 or a 15-year municipal lease, and here's what the payments will look like, and I can plug that in. So at the end, Jim, what you'll see, and I think I provided this, to the school board, was, you're looking at, about $1.2, $1.3 million a year in a combination of municipal leases and that renovation bond.
Okay, because one of the goals of the CIP program is to even out tax hits.
Right.
So that information that you just described fills that function this line 132 does not. It doesn't give us the information we need.
Scott,
I-
sorry if I might, one of the questions I was gonna ask is, do you happen to have an estimate of what the number would be for those items that are not qualified for the bond? Which I know you said that could change anyways, but maybe if we do like a benchmark, here's what we think can go into a bond.
Yeah, so I did,
And then-
can I did not provide copies for you folks, but if I can show you, since you asked the question, if this is what you think is where you're going with it, and Kelly, I don't know if you can take a quick look, but, so what I did here is like an FY '24.
I'm going to present this on my Promethean screen.
I assumed an IT lease.
This is exactly.
I assumed a 12-year lease at this interest rate for $3 million. And then this was the bond at 10, so that, you know, in the first year, it was a $1.1 million hit, a 1.8, a 2
Yeah.
point, like that type of
That's
thing.
exactly what I
I'm
meant.
sorry, it was this. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. But sorry, Jim, for me, that
No,
makes
no,
a lot of
that
sense.
does.
But also,
All right.
Danielle did some really great charting last year with potential bond interest rates for the library proposal.
Right.
So that might be a good, something to look at before you jump into that.
Okay.
She did a really good job breaking that out by all the different options.
Given that this is CIP only, this is a planning tool, you're entitled to make reasonable assumptions about what the financing could be, recognizing it will change.
Okay.
When we present it.
And that's what I did for the school board retreat. I said, okay, I'm assuming it's,
Do you agree?
you know, a
Madam Chair?
4.75% interest rate. You're gonna,
You're the one who's going to present this.
yeah, that's something that I already have. So, it'll be a little tweaking on my part, but that's easy to do.
And just when we look out as the whole, like for 2026 is our biggest year when you look, you know, again, bottom line, we've got $11 million for the town side, but we also, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 bonds. So, you know, it might be tough for the voters to vote on 3 bonds in 1 year. So we, you know, that's definitely, that's how, you know, we look at the whole package together.
I gotcha.
Library,
And I think
Parks
this,
and
we had
Rec,
talked about moving
schools.
some forward.
Right, we did, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And-
everything's getting shuffled as we go
right, and
along.
just, maybe, you know, not to overshare too much, but during the retreat, what we presented to the school board was to try to taking a look at budget, you know, projected budget growth, and then adding in the cost of these leases and municipal bonds, and like, what would that look like on the increase from the prior year, and what it might be on the tax rate, that type of thing, which is always, that's where the rubber meets the road with people. It's like, hey, how much is it gonna cost me?
Right.
Recognizing that you've got aging buildings, and, you know, you gotta do things with them.
Right.
So that's kind of what I try to fit in. It also helps the school board, because as they develop their budgets, if you're trying to fall within a certain percentage increase from the prior year, if that's one of your, I know that's what most select boards and school boards do, they look at what's the increased dollar amount, what's the increase on a percentage basis, all those types of things, and what is not already in the default, and what is, you know, in terms of contracts that were previously approved by the voters, so.
And your
we
revenues.
Right, so we try to do all that, and the hardest part for us and for the select board is the revenues are all over the board. Like, you don't know from one year to the other, is the legislature gonna give you X, this number, or another number? And I share this with the school board. We went from having a governor and a House of Representatives increased revenue of $1.1 million, okay? Both the governor and the House proposed an increase in local aid to Goffstown of 1.1 million, and it ended up, the Senate had it at 300, a little over 300,000, and that's what they compromised on. So, you know, I'm not gonna, it would be unfair for me, as Dan Cloutier pointed out, to say, we didn't lose anything because we never had it in the first place. But there were 2 budgets that were very favorable to Goffstown. That's $800,000. Had it gone the other way, that's quite a bit. That's almost 50 cents, you know, on the tax rate. Just in people wrangling in Concord. So, I leave it at that. So I had one ask, and I know we asked this of you as the chair, but we weren't here in session, but it would be awesome if in doing these in the future, if it was just the matrix itself, doing these sheets is extremely time consuming. So Dawn Tabor, who works with Randy, she does a lot of them, and each one of them has to be signed. And essentially all the ones that repeat, you have to go and change the year, and it takes like a day or two to do that, whereas using the spreadsheet and this big piece of paper really works. And I would just respectfully request from this committee as well as the planning board to really go, a lot of paper gets wasted here.
Is that
And-
statutory by any
No,
means?
it's,
No,
Is
we
it
create
committee?
our own policies. Statute's pretty, you know.
and I say that as somebody who is an administrator, that, I always want to spend my time, what I feel is doing like productive type work, and I know Dawn has spent at least, she spends a day probably going through all of this. Then you have to merge them, and then you gotta sign them, and and then, God forbid, as you were mentioning, Danielle, like one doesn't jive with the other, and you're almost doing it in two different spaces. And if there is a need for more information, then maybe it's an addendum, to it, and I have no problem, putting an addendum on. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Danielle, but do you, you're on the town side, do you share that, or, like?
Yeah, I agree. I think, we've noticed the same thing, that really the matrix gives a better overview and side-by-side comparison, so you can see multiple projects at once. Whereas the sheet gives really just a bigger area for detailed, like descriptions or project background. I know that, I was noticing that the handbook hasn't been amended by the committee since 2018. So it may be worthwhile for the committee to just consider doing some updates.
Could, there's a short memo at the end of each line. If there was something that needed to be added from the narrative, could that be put into there? I'm talking about a brief.
Yeah, it definitely can. It's an Excel sheet, so we have the ability to
Yeah.
expand the lines as much as needed. As Scott indicated, if something needed to go beyond, I know on the town side, we actually here on the school one too, like the first page is an example, the heating controls at Bartlett, it's, 6 or 7 lines instead of 2. So you can accommodate more space, as well as if we really needed to, we could add like a footnote or something that would take you to an appendix
that's
or
what he
addendum or
said,
something.
An addendum that would,
Anything, yeah.
That could have some additional,
the further explanation.
yeah.
Also, a lot of the town departments, which the school doesn't do, and I'm not saying that we would need to, but a lot of them provide us with, a little packet of like their main project breakouts, and if they wanted to add any
That'd be more useful to us.
further information, but I don't know that it's necessary, they don't all do it.
I just think what most of us are looking at are the spreadsheets, and it's typically in the planning board, they don't look at the reports.
Yeah.
Joanne, can we put that on an agenda to discuss? That's the planning board discussion, right? How CIP operates?
We should
Yeah,
make a-
so
we should make a
would make-
recommendation to the planning board.
I don't really know if the planning board has any say over the form that you use, because I know as far as the planning forms go, that's up to staff. It says it right in their rules that any forms that are used, we don't have to get them approved by the planning board. But I noticed here, just looking at this really quickly, it says, see the forms at the back of the rules and regulations. So if you go to the back of the rules, the only form that's showing is
It's
the worksheet. And there, they don't talk I don't think they talk anything in here about a matrix, although I'd have to read it more carefully. So I think if you wanted to, you have the ability to amend your rules by yourself. You don't need to take that to the planning board.
Would a form discontinuation need approval, because we're not really changing a form, we're getting rid of it?
I think it's pretty much the same thing, as long as you're having the same information provided to you in another way.
it's really the structure of it, not so much, the content
Right.
is all there. It's just in a
Yeah.
different structure, you know. I
Yeah,
don't-
it's my understanding under RSA 674 that the committee has the oversight to make that determination in the development of their rules. As the committee has been given the authority from its creation, really. The fact that the committee was, the language indicates that it could be the Board of Selectmen, or it could be the governing body, or, because some municipalities don't have a formal CIP committee, but where we do, then that authority falls to the CIP committee.
Okay.
Yeah, but don't we come under the planning board itself? When
You're a
that-
subcommittee of the planning
Subcommittee.
board, but you are a formal subcommittee that's in RSA.
So we could, okay, change the rules a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, it talks about preparation, what it needs to include. I think the handbook would need to be amended to talk about the matrix, because as Joanne said, I don't believe the matrix is actually mentioned anywhere in the existing handbook. So we'd want to capture that language or something to describe what's to be included on the matrix, or how it's to be laid out, or something of that nature if you were going to replace the forms.
And I will just advocate for the people who fill out the forms that while they've already done it for this year, it's not pertinent that we make the rule change for right now, but in helping them plan for starting this for next year would probably be helpful. So by the time we meet for the first time, they're usually already working on those, so.
All right, great.
Yeah, so I thank you so much for even considering it. Like I was just asking Randy, I'm like, what do you think? Like, I'm telling you, we concur that 10% of it of our time would be updating the matrix itself, like adding a line, changing a priority, moving a project here and there in Excel. Filling out the form is 90% of the time, and so, we would be saving like 2 to 3 days worth of work by doing this. So I hope that's how significant. I wouldn't even ask if I didn't think it was, and that doesn't take into consideration Patty's time. Because
Right.
every single sheet here, she has to then put into.
She puts all the books
So she
together.
then she does it even more, and then puts the books together, and this is a monumental undertaking.
I also think that we could leave it as if the CIP committee wants to request additional information, they could be asked to complete this form, I guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that way, we're not removing it completely from standard procedure, but we're just giving it that it's not the expectation.
It does say on page 8 that the format of the CIP recommendation at a minimum is a written matrix for the coming 6 years, plus an oral statement of department projects nominated but not accepted by the committee.
So you satisfied that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much just for considering it. It would be a huge help.
Probably add a header there.
Yeah, sorry. Ellen, did you want to?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea unless somebody on this committee is accustomed to studying every page, which I'm not sure we're all doing. But if needed, the memo part of this list, if needed, could be beefed up with a few more words or explanation that would be very helpful and still far less work. And
That's
So,
what I just said.
I'll make that motion then, and then to keep the form in here as if requested by the CIP committee could be used to request additional information, and that would go into effect after this CIP year.
Okay.
second.
Oh, is that a motion?
So then, let's clarify, so then the submission going for the next year then would be a submittal of the matrix and not of the forms, and the forms will be available if needed as requested. So just to kind of clarify.
Or a narrative, we've gotten those from some of the departments.
Sure,
that-
right.
From the
Brief
town
narrative.
department.
Yeah,
That
I
have talked, like fire department did. And, you could do that more easily, like a 4-page memo that describes everything that you said in a brief way, that's, by category, technology upgrades, building upgrades.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
as the standards say, like orally, so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
technically have to.
Yeah.
start
We
moving.
could
need
put
something
it
in writing,
at the department's discretion.
Yeah, but it's useful if there are major areas to highlight in a written document, that we don't need the detail on something on each one, because it's so
Right.
repetitive.
Yeah, okay.
We did have some problems this year getting the CIP requests from the department heads because they were so busy.
Yeah. Well,
And
let's decrease
several
their
of
work.
them came in late, and so I think this would be a big plus for
Yeah,
them.
let's just make work. It's
Right.
good.
Okay, so we got a motion on the floor, so let's make a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstains? Okay.
Thank you
Motion
very
carries.
much.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to ask for while you're here? In the school next year?
Ice
On a
cream.
roll?
Ice
We're gonna go over
cream.
the meeting minutes.
I'd also like to make a motion for the CIP Program Committee handbook that we update appropriately the use of Board of Selectmen to Select Board.
Yeah, we should do some general editing. Yeah.
Sorry.
We gotta,
Oh, sorry.
we gotta
I'll
go through
second
that.
that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
So hang on, you're getting too much going on here.
I can meet you there.
Kelly, restate your motion.
No.
Motion to upgrade the CIP, or update the CIP handbook to, from Select Board to, Board of Selectmen to Select Board.
Okay,
Oh, you're talking, yeah, I understand.
great.
Just
Update the
add
handbook.
it.
Technical.
Yes.
Wait, what was the
The
motion?
terminology
I've got it,
for the
Joanne.
Board of Selectmen has changed. It's now the Select Board, and we want to amend the CIP handbook to
Okay, so
reflect
the
that change.
Select Board does not.
No, it's the
update
way
the
it's
book.
referred to
I
in
just
the
want to
manual.
make it correct.
It's the wording change.
To the appropriate.
Oh, I
Select-
see,
You could
okay.
call it
I get it.
non-substantive, but it does carry some substance
Yes,
with it. so.
I'm sorry, I
Thank-
misunderstood.
Thank you. So I think and you're the one who will do that?
Well, I was gonna ask, if you'd like Joanne and I to, as staff, go through and kind of redline a version that would include the changes from the last motion as well as any other updates that, for the
Perfect.
committee to consider.
That would be
Yes.
great.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so somebody seconded? Okay, and so let's vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstains? Okay,
And then we'll
Thank
just
you.
approve the language next meeting?
yes.
Do we have to approve minutes?
Yes,
Yes,
We do, we have two sets of minutes to
We do?
approve.
I got the 15th.
We're supposed
What
to
is
do
the
picture
first date?
I have the 15th.
The 15th?
That's what
Okay.
was in the package that I got.
Yes,
email or
yes,
something.
they were mailed out, both dates were mailed out.
Move to approve.
Does anybody have any comments on the minutes from the 15th?
Was that the last meeting? Or is
That was the last.
Yes, that was last meeting. So,
I'll second.
okay.
Who made the motion?
Ellen made the motion, Kelly seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain? Jim abstains. And then I believe we had the minutes from the previous meeting,
The first.
the first. Any comments on the minutes from the first? No? Ellen moves to approve.
I'll second.
Jim will second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approve, abstain? No? Okay, that one carries too. So thank you. Okay, and then the next meeting, for those of you who we're not noticing, is next week. So we don't get a 2-week break this time. So July 6th, we have Public Works and Sewer. I don't know why.
Because there's
just
5 weeks and 5
Oh,
Thursdays in
that's
June.
right. Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
And they are
I was
opposite.
looking at my
opposite
calendar saying,
planning.
that doesn't seem right, but.
Oh, do we still need to have a picture taken?
Well, the
Yes.
reason
Yeah,
was
I do.
because the whole board would be here, but with Dan not here, do we want to try to do it next week instead?
Sure.
Do we have time to do it?
I didn't know that it was picture day.
Yeah.
Yeah. so-
An
Got an
email.
email.
Do you
I
want
got
to do it
an
now?
email that said that.
Yes, there was an email.
We did get an email that said
Let's
that.
wait
Why
and
don't
see
I-
if Dan's here.
Why
Yeah,
don't
I
I
think
take a
we should.
Why
picture
didn't you take a picture?
tonight and a few pictures,
Yeah.
and then if Dan is here next week, we'll do
We
it
can do
again.
another one.
Just in
Okay.
case
That way
someone
we
else
have
is missing.
something.
All
Yeah.
right, yes. All right, let's gather
The
around.
picture is for,
For the annual
The annual
annual
report.
report.
which is, oh, okay, skip that.
Okay, so are we adjourning
Yeah.
technically?
Motion to adjourn?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Look, second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye, okay.